Alright, so today in this lecture, we will now look at the optimality conditions for the multivariate multivariate unconstrained minimization problem. So our idea is to minimize f of x is coming from Rn, and again f is twice continuously differentiable function. Same as earlier, so that means all the partial derivatives first and second exist and are considered to be continuous. Then we can say that the necessary condition for conditions actually for x star to be a local minimum are: one, the gradient of f evaluated at x star should be equal to 0. This is the condition of stationary point. And the Hessian matrix h of x of star, or sometimes also shown by g of x of star, but basically what I mean to say is delta square, the matrix of delta f square with respect to del I, del xi, del xj evaluated at x equal to x star is positive semi-definite. So this is essentially a condition of non-negative curvature. This is a condition of essentially non-negative curvature. So the thing is, we can again take recourse to Taylor series expansion, which we have reviewed earlier also. So the thing is, I have to, if my x star is a local minimum, then what I need to show is that if I take a small epsilon step, small epsilon step around, I mean, in an arbitrary direction p, then so long as this step is small enough, and I can assume epsilon to be positive, this will be always, this will be always greater than or equal to f of x of star. If x star is a local minimum. In other words, if this happens, that for any small epsilon I can find such that however small I take non-zero, if this term becomes in that neighborhood, always I can find a small enough neighborhood such that this becomes less than f of x of star, then how can you claim this to be local minimum? How can this be local minimum? So we have to rule this possibility out. Then only we will be able to establish that we can. This is necessary for local minimum. Okay, so let's start with Taylor series expansion straight away. I have x star. I have any arbitrary direction p. I want to take a small step epsilon around it. Then the Taylor series expansion says that I can write this as epsilon gradient of fx star transpose p plus epsilon square by 2 p transpose h Hessian x star plus epsilon p, and then I am inserting a theta before that, times of p. Okay, so slightly more complex than what we had earlier, but what is this gradient vector. This is gradient of f with x1 up to gradient of f with partial derivative of xn evaluated at x equal to x star. So it is a n cross 1 vector. So therefore, and what is P? P is a direction in Rn. So therefore, P is a n cross 1 vector. So what happens to this term? This is a scalar, and epsilon is also a scalar. So dimensionally, of course, the linearized term is clear. Now this is the term Hessian. Epsilon square by 2 is of course a scalar, and P transpose H x square x star theta epsilon P times of P. If you look at it, first of all, look at this argument. Understand what is this argument here. X star is a vector in Rn. P is a direction also in Rn. Epsilon is a step that we have taken across this direction. So this is a scalar, and similarly theta is also a scalar in Taylor series expansion, which is between 0 and 1, which makes this summation exact, and I don't know this theta. That's the challenge, right? I mean, I know some theta exists between 0 and 1, which makes this happen, but I don't know this theta. So essentially, if you look at epsilon square by 2, P transpose H, x star epsilon theta P times of P. This is summation epsilon square by 2, I equal to 1 to n, j equal to 1 to n, del square f by del xi xj evaluated at x star plus theta epsilon p, partial derivatives evaluated at this, into coordinates pi and pj, and this is summation of n square terms, and therefore this is also a this whole thing is again a scalar. Now if each of these second derivatives are continuous functions, then the summation is also a continuous function. So therefore, we will be able to use continuity arguments later on. Now, let us say that, okay, I had also said that, if you recall earlier in my notes and other things that I have given you, I have also said that this term can be written as less than or equal to some capital M epsilon square. I have also said that this is, in other words, this error term is order epsilon square. And how does this come? Again, you can show that this comes from Weierstrass theorem, because you are looking at if you look at this problem, maximize over theta between 0 and 1, epsilon is of course fixed. So epsilon I don't have to write here, so I will just write P is also fixed. So P transpose H of x star theta epsilon P times of P. Then, because as I just showed you above, this is a continuous function and this is a closed and a bounded set, so therefore this maximization has a solution, and if there is a finite maximum, then that maximum can be written as less than or equal to some capital M, and so this term here would become less than or equal to M epsilon square. So the whole thing is that it is a quadratic. You can say that this term here is bounded below a m epsilon square kind of a quadratic function. That's really nice. So now again there are three terms here in the expansion. Uh, there are three terms here. First is of course the function itself at x star, which is fixed value. Second is the linear approximation term, and third is that quadratic term, the unknown term, which makes it exact, which for us in terms of error we have just saw that it is order epsilon square kind of a term. So now what is the first requirement of our necessary condition that we have stated? That uh, the gradient should be equal to 0. So to the contrary, first assume that gradient is not equal to 0. If gradient is not equal to 0, so our proof is proceeding by contradiction. The proof is by contradiction, and we will assume first that this is not equal to 0. Then it implies that I can always find the direction P such that this is projection of this direction on the gradient vector is less than 0. In other words, this kind of a direction is called a descent direction. And a simple, very simple thing is just take this is called the steepest descent direction incidentally. You think it over why it is called steepest minus of this. When you look at this is going to be equal to if you substitute it exactly the p steepest descent direction, this is going to be nothing but minus of the second norm of the square of the length of the gradient vector, and this is always less than 0 if this is not equal to 0. Hence, what I meant to say is that there is always a descent direction, and in this descent direction you can always take this projection of the direction on the gradient vector to be less than 0. If that is the way you have chosen the direction, then if you look at the Taylor series expansion now, the second term says that the function will reduce if I choose epsilon greater than 0 and a descent direction, then the second term says that the function will reduce, and the third term has still a indeterminate behavior because I don't know where is this theta exactly placed. Now, like the previous term, like the univariate case, however, I can say that the sign of the summation of the second term and the third term is decided by summation of 2 plus 3 is decided by sign of the second term, which is this. Why? Because the third term goes at a quadratic rate to 0. The second term goes at a linear rate to 0. So by the logic that I gave you earlier, if epsilon is greater than 0 and below a threshold, then the second term will dominate the third term. Like I gave you example of x minus x square and x minus 16x square, if you recall in the previous lecture. Very similar logic applies here. And so if I have a descent direction, then independent of what this term here is, overall I can say that if the second term is negative, there is a descent obtained from the linear term, then overall the function will reduce for epsilon below a threshold epsilon bar and 0, and a appropriate descent direction, an appropriate descent direction, which is a contradiction, is it not? What is the contradiction? It is given to you that x star is a local minimum. Now we are just seeing what conditions it has to satisfy. So therefore you cannot assume that it is not equal to 0. You must have that the gradient should be 0. In other words, x star must be a stationary point. Once you have come to this condition that x star must be a stationary point, what happens to this expansion? It becomes fx of star plus half of epsilon square p transpose h x star epsilon theta p times of p. Now the behavior of this function at the stationary point is decided by the quadratic term. This decides the behavior. So again my necessary condition says that this should be positive. Necessary condition that we have stated in our theorem is that this should be positive semi-definite, that is p transpose h star p should be greater than or equal to 0 for all p directions not equal to 0 in Rn. So again, to the contrary, again proof proceeds by contradiction only, and to the contrary, assume that P transpose H, assume that for that there exists some P such that P transpose Hx star of P is strictly less than 0. Some P. For example, suppose I give you a matrix like a simple matrix like this. Then you could choose P to be equal to 0 and 1, the second coordinate direction, the second coordinate direction you can choose, and here you will get P transpose HP to be equal to -1, which is less than 0. But if you had chosen P to be equal to 1 0, you would have got P transpose HP to be greater than 0, as it is 1. So what I am saying is, if the matrix is positive semi-definite, then what it means is that for every p that you choose, any arbitrary p, this has to be greater than or equal to 0. And a very simple example in the two-dimensional case is the diagonal matrix like 1 0 or a diagonal matrix like 0 1. And positive definite, these are both semi-definite matrices, because on the second coordinate axis uh, this this one will become 0, and on the first coordinate axis this becomes 1 1. And in general, if you take x1 x2 h x1 x2, it is equal to x1 square, which is always greater than or equal to 0, being a non-negative term. So this is actually a positive semi-definite matrix, very straightforward to see this. But in case of an indefinite matrix, as I said, in case the matrix is not positive definite, then there will be some then it means that there will be some p vector such that this will be less than 0. In fact, you can even assume that it is -1, but I am just going to assume that it is less than 0. So what we are now saying is that suppose to the contrary that h is not positive, necessary conditions required that hx star should be positive semi-definite. To the contrary, assume that h of x of star is not positive semi-definite, then it implies there exists a P such that P transpose H of x of star of P will be strictly less than 0. And what is this P transpose H of x of P? It is nothing but summation of I equal to 1 to n, j equal to 1 to n, pi pj del square f by delta xi xj del xj. And since this is a summation of n square continuous functions, since we have assumed the function capital F to be twice continuously differentiable, this is also continuous. So if this is strictly less than 0, then it implies that in a small enough neighborhood, I will have, which I can write this small enough neighborhood is being decided by this theta, because epsilon is already fixed and p is also already fixed. This is also going to be strictly less than 0. If this is the case, then what happens to my function? The function will, I will get that this will also be strictly less than f of x of star, because epsilon square is positive, and if I have the remaining term to be less than 0, so the function reduces, which is a contradiction. Contradiction to what? X star is a local minimum. So therefore, it becomes necessary that this should be 0 and this should be greater than or equal to 0 for all p vectors in Rn not equal to 0. In other words, Hessian matrix should be at least positive semi definite. This is required. It should be at least positive semi definite. What happens if h of x of star is positive definite, which means to say that for all p, h of x of star of p is strictly greater than 0, then it means that at stationary point f of x of star plus epsilon p will be written as f of x of star, and x star is taken to be a stationary point, then this is h of x of star of theta epsilon p times of p, and for small epsilon below some epsilon bar and greater than 0, you will always get this condition that this is this term is strictly greater than 0. Why? Because this term is strictly greater than 0, then by continuity argument in a small enough neighborhood, everywhere this has to be greater than 0, and hence f of x star plus theta epsilon p will be strictly greater than f of x of star, which is nothing but the condition of strict local minimum. In fact, you get the first set of sufficiency conditions now. The sufficiency conditions for unconstrained minimum are 1, gradient should be 0, stationary point, and Hessian matrix at x star should be positive definite. Now, next class we will take up some examples. Thank you.